Greetings, everybody. I am Young Penitent, and welcome to my Icon Corner. Here I am, like always, on time, every time. And today, I'm excited to have as a guest Mano Elia, and he apparently goes by the Mano. And so he has a up and coming YouTube channel that you have probably heard of, The Study of Stuff. And if you haven't heard of it, that's why we're bringing him on, so you guys can meet Mano and find out about what he's doing over there. Before we get started, please like the show and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, but I suspect you already have, because that's just what people do. And with that, I'll add Mano to the stage. Welcome, Mano.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. I don't know where should I start. Let's talk about you. Why don't you tell us who you are, a little bit of your background, and I'll ask a couple questions, just after you introduce yourself, who you are.
Sure, no problem. If I tend to ramble or veer off in any way, which I tend to do, it is, you're welcome to pull me back and stuff and get me back on track.
Yeah.
Just a quick little bit about me. My name is Mano Elia. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, Greek Orthodox. So I'm cradle. I veered away from the faith for quite a few years. I would say over 20 years. And I went down the path of Hermeticism in particular. Some people will just like to call it all the occult. I think it's important for me to say that it matters why you veer off, like why you go into the occult, let's say, quote unquote. For me, my interest was because some people go into it for the dark arts, let's say. For me, my interest was, what is consciousness? Where does it come from? What is that thing that when I stare in a mirror stares back at me? That was always my goal, and truth was always my GPS location. Okay. So anyways, I went down that path for a bunch of years. Growing up in Toronto, I did a lot of things from cooking to playing a lot of music. I'm a musician as well. I had a gypsy folk punk band in Toronto, Ontario for a number of years. And when the events of 2020 occurred, I didn't like how Canada was doing things, let's say. So I decided to leave Canada and find my way to Mexico, where I am currently. And around that time, I started looking into Orthodoxy. I was questioning some of the things I was into spiritually, let's say, and the nihilistic nature of nothingness always bothered me, and it really, truly bugged me to the point where I'm like, this can't be it. And I found my way back to the faith. Let's just say that to sum that up, a couple of years ago, I would say 2-3 years ago, I started asking questions, going down that road. But I had Father Turbo Kowals, who's my spiritual father, on a year ago, a little over a year ago. And that was the pivotal moment where I got spiritually kicked in the butt. He pushed me over the cliff in a positive way, and he shook my world. And I find myself back in the faith, putting out Orthodox content over the last year in particular. I think is that a good answer?
That's good. Great answer. And it gives me a couple other follow-up questions I can ask. So you came back to the faith. Now, so people who are weren't cradle, they're converts. They converted. They had this experience of conversion. And I'm curious, because I wondered, do you feel like you had a conversion experience as an adult? Would you characterize it that way, or would you think you just were coming back to the faith that you were practicing as a child? Some people will say, I converted as an adult. We came to church a couple times. And what was your we'll start with this. What was your spiritual life like as a child? Were you guys every week type of people, or what?
Good question. I would say up until about grade 7 or grade 8, we were going to church almost every Sunday. I would say, like, at least 2-3 times a month. It was more of like, I would say I'm culturally Orthodox at that point. My father would always love teaching me history, so I was raised on Byzantine history, of course. But my grandfather my father's father had a huge impact on me about in terms of faith. So he was in Cyprus at that time, and so when I would go to church up until I started leaving, he was always on my mind. My grandfather and his approach to the faith. So to answer your question, I would say it's a difficult question for me to ask because we had a couple of years where we were going to church and a couple we weren't. But I would say the last up until about grade 7 or 8, we were going to church a couple times a month, more than just Basca and all those things. So
Okay.
it was good. It was a good time when I was young.
Okay, so maybe you had a good spiritual formation as a child. It sounds like maybe.
Yes, my father he loved to teach me a lot of Greek history and stuff like that. So for him, the church was more of like a good lesson in history.
Okay.
He also did like the fact that they still used older Greek. So for him, it was like a good entry point to kenoi, or however you pronounce it in English, the biblical Greek. So he liked that aspect of it. He didn't tell me not to believe in the faith. He I guess he would consider himself Orthodox, but it was mostly my grandfather who, for him, there was no separating life from the faith. So but I did have a strong attachment to the church at that time, for sure.
Yeah, it takes sometimes all it takes is like that one person who's a very faithful person to influence a young person for the rest of their life, and it's probably their prayers really that's what's doing it there. So probably your grandfather was praying for you. So your grandfather was in Cyprus. Did you go visit him? Did he visit you, or how did you know him?
You actually said something very interesting there, which I would like to comment on once I answer this question. Yes, he was mostly in Cyprus. He came to Canada for a small period of time in the summer when I was really, really young. Like I can't remember, like 82, 83. But most of the impact was the few times I'd gone to Cyprus and that time when he was in Canada. But you said something there really important. It's like you hit on you said the prayer. It takes is one person to tell you a prayer. That interview with Father Turbo, I get shook up even thinking about it. I was telling Father Turbo in that interview that I remember my grandfather constantly whispering, like he was talking to himself. And I asked him when I was really young, like, why do you keep whispering? Why are you talking to yourself? And he said in Greek, I'm saying a little prayer, my son. I'm saying a little prayer. It hadn't occurred to me it was the Jesus prayer he was saying.
Wow.
And then Father Turbo looks at me on camera and he goes, sorry, I get shook up when I was thinking of it. He's like, that's why you're here, right? And then I kept rambling, going, oh, yeah. And he stopped me. He looked right in the camera and Father Turbo goes, that's why you're here, right? And I was like, oh, and it just was like, everything kind of came together. And so you're 100% correct to say that. And I think that's an important thing, that sometimes it just takes that one person praying for you.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard the story before, people coming from the Soviet Union. It's a pretty common story, actually, that their parents were not religious at all. It wasn't allowed, but their grandma talked to them about God. It's a very common story. And it's often the women, for some reason, like grandmas, but it can be grandfathers too. But those pious old ladies are often the ones keeping the ship sailing right, I suppose.
Amen.
So what brought your parents? Why did they were first generation immigrants to Canada? What brought them to Canada? Was there some political problems or at home or what?
No, not at first. So my father moved to Canada in 1967. At that point, there was some murmurings and bubblings in Cyprus and issues with the whole Turkish situation, but it hadn't really, like, the poop hadn't hit the fan yet. So he came for his own reasons, kind of exploring, I guess, it was a young man type of thing. And my mother, so unusual for a Greek or like an immigrant story, my parents actually met in Canada. Usually they come as a couple. My mom got to Canada in 74. She just moved there with her mom and her sister at the time. And but my dad stayed in Canada because he wanted to go back to Cyprus always. So in 74, when they invaded Cyprus, the Turks invaded Cyprus, he stayed in Canada because of that situation.
Oh, okay. Actually, I don't know. This is an interesting comment. I just want to highlight it. Make sure Mano wipes his feet. What is this? From Moldy Space Film?
That's my buddy Moldy. It's a running joke we have because we had on SOS radio. We were talking somehow. Rick Rubin came up, and some people don't particularly like Rick Rubin. Some people do, and it just became a running joke because Rick Rubin never wears shoes, and I was in some ways defending Rick Rubin, so it's just become like a running joke.
And I'm also noticing on your camera that you have a spoon taped to your microphone. What's the deal with the spoon?
Well, you might have also noticed that in the chats, there's a bunch of spoons and a comment about
what's going on with the spoon?
So it kind of happened like randomly. I always like having something odd in the camera because I started YouTubing in 2009 and I'd always have odd things in the back. I don't remember specifically what happened with the spoon, but I needed something to clip some of my mics on, my little lavalier mics. So I used a spoon. My nephew, who's also my business partner on the project we're working on, he's like, here, use the spoon or something like that. I can't remember what it was. And then after that point, I'd have it all over the place and I started taping it here. And oftentimes people didn't notice. And at one point someone did notice, it was brought up, and then people started throwing spoons in the chats. I'm going to ask Father Turbo. I don't have his permission as of yet to use it as a symbol for the spoon. I forgot what it's called at church. I would like to have that as why it's there.
Okay.
But I haven't asked him if I can.
Kind of like it could be a hidden thing, like
exactly
symbols. We can use symbols too, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you raised in the faith, then you got into Hermeticism, and then you got drawn back to the faith because you didn't. I think you said it before. What did you say was the reason you were?
One of the issues I always had with the quote unquote that world hermetic, like all of that new agey, whatever you want to call it, it was just a nihilistic emptiness of their explanation of what God would be, quote unquote. That always bothered me. So it always left a door open for me to kind of question that, because it was all about like everything. It would, like in Hermeticism in particular, they kind of describe God as the all. And at that time, I would like to attach the all that permeates and penetrates all things. Oddly enough, if you kind of take that and you replace God with it, it's very similar to the description given in the Nicene Creed. So that was one of the things that was always in the back of my head that always annoyed me about it. Because if everything is everything, then everything is nothing. And then it's kind of like, if everything is beautiful, then nothing is ugly. What's the point, right? And there's like, so when I would think to myself, so when I die, I go where? I go to the everything. I just become part of everything. That's so empty. It's so gross.
Oh, so, yeah. It's such a bleak worldview. And I've passed through that, belief system before I arrived at Orthodoxy.
Yeah, so there was that left a door for me to question things, but then I was already questioning it through a couple of other ways. I kind of started going, okay, there's something wrong here. I started looking into this document called "The Changing Image of Man." It was published by the Stanford Institute, and in there I started to recognize a lot of it's clearly a document of social engineering and culture creation. And from that document, I started seeing a lot of the names I recognized in the quote unquote new age world. And I started to make me go, okay, wait a minute. So this is like a socially engineered thing. So there was a lot of that. And then I'd always been interested in the Tavistock Institute, like early 2000s, and then started to make those connections. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Their whole concept of psychedelics, shamanistic worship, meditation in the schools, veganism, spread it, libertarianism, all this stuff as aspects and ways of altering and manipulating society. And then I started to take a lot of these things and invert them, because I was like the 7 principles in the Hermetic text, I started to invert them. And as I was learning about Orthodoxy, because I had a lot of misconceptions of what I thought Orthodoxy was, I started to see, they just took all of these things in ancient Christianity, Orthodoxy, pre-denominational Orthodoxy, and they just inverted everything, and it led me back to the church.
Okay, so it sounds like you had a pious intention behind all that you were going through, and it kind of redeemed your experience. It sounds like going through these false paths. So I guess your experience was redeemed in that manner. Now, this is something you mentioned, the social engineering, and when I was researching this for this video, I was reading how you one of your goals is to re-engineer their social engineering. Oh, by the way, I want to, before I finish this question, I want to shout out to Orthodox Boomer Grandma. I see her in the chat. And she's the reason you're here today. She told me about your podcast, and she said it's the hot new podcast on the block or something like that. So I went and I subscribe to your channel, and people can, there's a link below, Study of Stuff podcast. People, please go and subscribe if you haven't already. And I've tuned in. You're working hard. You're like live quite often. What is your schedule there anyway?
We don't have like a set schedule. I guess we're kind of working through to figure out what that schedule should be. But definitely every Sundays we do SOS Radio, which isn't part of the podcast. That's always for sure. It seems that Saturdays have become a little bit of a frequent thing. And then in between, we're trying to actually schedule for next year, like a more organized schedule and all that stuff. So we're kind of trying to condense some of the shows we do. We're trying to get a little bit more streamlined and focused with what we do. So it looks like we will have a schedule, but we don't have anything other than Sundays, and most likely Sunday evenings.
Okay. Yeah. It's good to have a schedule for YouTube channels so people know they can count on you. They can be there at a certain time. And, like if someone could go live at the same time every day, for example, like that's going to be a successful YouTube channel. It almost doesn't even matter what you say, as long as you're saying something.
It's true.
And because people just want to have, they want to turn on something and have a voice, even if in the background, just something to listen to while they're cooking dinner or cleaning up or whatever. But back to my question. Mm-hmm. Tell us about social engineering and your idea about re-engineering social engineering.
Okay. So those familiar with a lot of the stuff in this quote unquote conspiracy world or MK Ultra or any of those types of fields, they're very familiar with the term social engineering, culture creation. So after spending a couple of years, many years, kind of researching a lot of that stuff, and by research I mean more than just like the surface stuff. I was really interested in looking at the experiments conducted, what were their goals, why are they doing these sort of things. I started to see a pattern that was really disturbing, and it was something that I could relate in my own life, like just something as simple as the 80s and how they were pushing certain agendas, like the making fathers look stupid, with the Ted Bundys, Al Bundy's, and all of those kinds of things. Homer Simpson, exactly. Or in Roseanne, you had John Goodman. He was always like that bumbling, lovable idiot teddy bear who supported everything his wife said, regardless of what it was or if it made sense. So you start getting that stuff ingrained in your skull. Certain coined terms like anti this and anti that and all that stuff, and any isms, right? So these kinds of things are things that we've all experienced, and we can make that connection. So not to go too far down that rabbit hole, when I started to see a lot of these things and what their ultimate goal was, and then what I mean by their ultimate goal, that document I made reference to is called Changing Image of Man. Like there's a lot to be said about that title. It's not the changing image. It's like changing image of man. From what? From the image of God. And if we look at it from an inversion, we take all of these things that we have within our beautiful faith that are God-given, and you invert them. I started to see this pattern. So back to your question, if we know that this is something that permeates our culture, social engineering, we could see evidence for it. Well, if we understand why they're doing this, and why they're doing this, even from the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays and all that, if we look at like what are they really trying to do? They're trying to change your identity. They're trying to get in your head and make you identify with something else, to focus on what you are, not the who you are. So I started to realize, how are they doing this? Well, they're taking advantage of certain things that are ingrained in us as human beings, right? So what's the difference between a passion? The inversion would be the proper, the inversion of the virtues is the passions, right? So properly applied, sex is not a bad thing, but if it's done in an inappropriate way, of course, it becomes a devil's iconography, all the rest. Mm-hmm. So I started to see, what is it that they're feeding off of? They're feeding off these natural inclinations humans have that are ingrained in us, right? So if we took those things, for example, we seek entertainment, we seek connection, we seek all of these things. Why can't we take these tools, that are there, we know they work, and invert them and change them. So if you look at propaganda, right, the concept of, not the book, and the book, the concept of propaganda is basically, hypnotizing an individual, changing their inner world to, why isn't that exactly kind of sort of what we're doing with church, but in a positive manner, right? So for example, I started to see a lot of the connections that were in the quote unquote new age, which they use a lot for social engineering. Example, they use incense. So do we. They use color coordinations. So do we. They use different versions of pictures and all that, like mandalas and all that stuff. We use icons. We use the Fibonacci and the phi ratio and all that to build our churches so that they have certain vibrations in the church so that they can, bypass the subconscious mind. We're doing the same thing. The only thing is their intention is incorrect. No, let me correct that. Their intention is evil. And not only is it evil, they're disguising it. Whereas the church is transparent about what they're doing. They're trying to get you to connect and tune to God. So I started to realize we don't have positive entertainment. We don't have challenging entertainment. We don't have interesting entertainment. We just have this thing that's robbing your attention, and their intention is to rob your attention, hence an attention economy. So I figured if we took some of these things, music, art, like visual art, videos, conversations are dead. We need to bring them back. Conversations, all of this stuff. And we started to put this in front of an audience, humor, all of it, right? And put it into the audience, in front of the audience with a positive intention. And our positive intention, of course, is first and foremost with Christ and the church. Well, then we can use these things that they use against us for a positive manner, similar to how the church does it with incense and our chanting and liturgy and all of that stuff.
Okay, so it's kind of okay. I think that kind of answers itself. Another thing I didn't mention is that you're a musician, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
You did. So you had a band. What was the band's name?
Before leaving Canada, I had a band called The Drop Ups, and we were a gypsy Greek folk punk band.
Okay, and now are you a solo artist now or what?
Yeah, I haven't officially put out anything proper since 2021. I put out a solo album during that interesting time. Okay. So yeah, but I've been writing again. Coming back to the faith has made me rethink how I want to do things. So I've been kind of struggling with that, but I'm getting ready to start writing again properly and put things out.
Okay, yeah. I would like to also do some more music. I mean, it would be wonderful, but I would need to sit down and force myself to work. This is actually, yeah. I can ask you a question about that because, sure. I had an album. I think you probably are aware of that. Here it is. I actually have it to show people still in the package.
Awesome.
This is like over a decade old.
Yeah.
Rap, hip hop, Christian hip hop, and rap. I prefer rap, but
me too
as a term. That album, I couldn't stop myself from writing. I was just I was inspired and fired up, and I was really focused and concentrated. And that doesn't happen to me anymore. I almost don't write songs in that manner where you're inspired. But artists generally say you need to sit down. If you're my uncle's a poet and he teaches poetry, and he says, he taught poetry in college, and he says, yeah, you need to make yourself sit down and write, or, a block of time, or, I'm just going to do it every day. What is when you're writing songs? Cause I saw some of your stuff, you posted some videos and things on Facebook. And, so what is your method of writing? Does it just come to you and it's a natural thing, or do you have to sit down and force yourself to work?
I never do the forcing thing. Really? I don't suggest that. And actually, I had a great conversation yesterday with Neil from Dirt Poor Robins about this subject. We were talking about that. And I write very similar to him. I don't know. I just kind of store away ideas over the years, little bits of ideas, whether it's a riff or some lyrical content or an idea in general. It could be a philosophical idea of what is God or whatever. And then I kind of I don't visualize this way, but it's kind of like a seed that gets planted, and I don't know when that tree grows. So there's so many of them there that whenever I want to write something, it's less that I have to force myself to sit down to do something. I just grab my guitar and start noodling, and I just start riffing. And then, sometimes it's there, and then sometimes it isn't. And but you could be tricked. Sometimes you think it's not there, but it's just you haven't noodled enough. So I might put like a video on, and I kind of like watch something. Usually it has to be something not just entertainment, it has to be something with value. And as I noodle, all of a sudden in my head melodies are popping, or oh right, those lines. And then I start going, oh, that kind of does fit. And then all of a sudden a song, there it is. It's kind of how it goes. I made it sound easier than it is, but I guess it's one of those things that like, I don't want to compare myself to like crazy great artists, but someone like Picasso would say that it took him like 2 seconds to do like a little scribble, but it took him years to get to the point to do that sort of thing.
Okay.
I made a fool of myself for many, many years. So it took a while to get to that point, I guess.
How do you mean you made a fool of yourself?
Oh man. Just getting on stage, quivering, writing really bad songs, but knowing that I was, and I just kind of had to go through it. Like when you're
quivering, you were nervous.
Oh yeah, I think it took about. I'll be honest, it took about 10 years of performing before I wasn't nervous. Actually, right before the incidents in 2020 occurred, I was really hitting a stride, and it was quite unfortunate. Like on stage, I was like, okay, like I was confident enough that I knew I had like, and I mean this in a positive way, control of the audience. I knew when to turn them up. I knew when to turn them down. I knew how to play with an audience. I knew to walk in because we also played weird music. So when you play weird music, it takes a while to kind of like, it's like, eating something healthy versus like McDonald's. It takes a minute. Sometimes it takes a minute for your band to understand what you're doing. But by the time we kind of got it, I'm confident in saying at that point I had a very good grasp of how to move an audience. Even an audience that had no idea what they were in for. Like there was audiences, we walked in, everybody was like straight, like hardcore crust punk, and we were clearly not. And like people, my band would be like scared, like, yo, they're gonna kill us. I'm like, no, don't worry, I got this. And within 2-3 minutes, they were all like dancing to our music and just like going nuts. So it took a minute of making an ass of myself for many years though.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I find that fascinating. I mean, I was a performer, I did, but not like, I didn't go on tour in years and a lot of appearances. I would just like set up a show here and there around local places. That's all. That's as far as I ever got. I very much enjoyed performing and being on stage. It was like one of the highlights of my life, I think.
It's awesome.
And I think that, being might be part of the reason why I'm a YouTuber, because this is called a stage. We're on using this StreamYard. They call this a studio, and I added you to the stage. That's the terminology that they use. So
true.
I think you being a performer has something to do with why you're a YouTuber too.
I agree.
This is a performance in a certain sense. The audience, we can't see their faces, but there's people out there.
Absolutely. No, it's true. And when you try to like kind of react to the chat, and then kind of like, it's similar to seeing their faces in an audience going, jumping, whatever. You kind of learn how to figure that out. But yeah, I agree with you fully. This is a performance.
And it's important to pay attention to what people say, and people who are watching. I sometimes wonder what percentage of people are actually interacting. Like it's good to know what people are thinking. That's why comments are important. But most people, there's so many people out there who just watch and they never interact, they never comment. So you don't know who these people are. And so it's like a lot of it is darkness. Like we're on a stage and there's light here, but I don't know what's going on out there in the darkness, in the people who are watching.
So true. So true.
Here's Denise says, he should watch yesterday's SOS show with Neil. They talked about this and it was really insightful. I will do that. I did watch it. I watched the very beginning of it, but then I had enough screen time for the day.
Oh, I understand. Well, there's two. One is the live stream. She's referring to the live stream, and one is the episode we premiered, because
Oh,
we did a premiere, and then I asked them to come back on and kind of do like a live Q&A, but it just turned into like an hour of Neil just like spiritual bombs, man. He was just like,
really?
it was great. Like I've been getting messages all day, like, this is one of your best interviews ever. This was a
Really?
great. Yeah, he killed it.
What was the wait? So which one do you want me to watch now? The live or was it a pre-recorded one or?
The live stream is the one that Denise is referring to,
Okay.
where he makes comments about music and stuff like that. And he's very gracious with his time, so I'm very thankful to him. The premiere, it's like the episode itself is pretty good too, but and it's all Neil. It has nothing to do with me. If you're gonna watch it, don't watch it for me. Watch it for Neil. He's just like, I just got out of the way and I just let this like freight train of awesome just kind of go through. That's all. Well, that's what I usually try to do. But yeah, he was just
Freight
like,
train
whoa,
of awesome.
yeah.
So you're a beatboxer, huh?
Is that Moldy? Let me guess, Moldy.
Moldy
Yeah, there you
says, "Rate Mano's beatboxing."
He was trying to get me to do it in front of. I'm not that good of a beatbox. I just
think
like
I had
a drum machine.
I think I had someone beatbox live on a live stream before, but I can't remember. My memory's not that sharp.
Maybe at some point we'll do like a you freestyle while I beatbox type thing.
Oh, that's danger. That's danger. I did do a performance once where I knew a guy in the crowd was a beatboxer.
Yeah.
And I had him, I said, why don't you come on and I'll do this song to your beatboxing. That was kind of an improvised thing.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, we'll talk about music because we're putting something together for a bunch of musicians. So
Well, let's do that now. Let's talk about that now.
Sure.
I want to talk about Orthodoxy and music a little bit because that's kind of one of the focuses of my channel. I try to focus on Orthodoxy. Sometimes mental health is a topic I talk about, and music is another interest of mine.
Awesome.
So like, what are you? Is this part of your initiative? Is that your Bored No More initiative? Is music part of that, or?
Yeah, music seems to have threaded its way through everything. Not surprisingly, I guess. There's a couple of things we do, like the podcast. So I'm just going to break it all down and answer your question. Okay. There's the podcast, which is the SOS podcast, the Study of Stuff podcast. Then there's SOS Radio, which is like an impromptu radio show. It's kind of like old school radio meets the modern, internet thing, whatever. And what we do is we just, I just play music I like, music I love. I talk about it sometimes. Sometimes I just go off on crazy rants about whatever's on my mind. Sometimes I'll do like more like planned out episodes where I'll do a breakdown of like scenes or like a genre or whatever. And I do try to focus as much as I can on Orthodox musicians because we have like a fantastic amount of Orthodox content out there that's just mind blowing, and I'm getting more and more stuff. So send me some of your stuff too. I'll go through some of it. So that's one component we do. And then the other thing is with the whole Bored No More thing. Well, that's kind of like we're calling it the network, the Bored No More network. Or it's
and
like
this is all on your one YouTube channel. This is all
currently. Yes. We're working on a proper website. So this is like a bigger project, I guess, but it does fit with your question. And so I'll try to break it down. So pull me back if I go too far. Basically, Bored No More. We call it Bored No More because, that's how the Great Deceiver gets you, through boredom and idle hands and all of that stuff. So to avoid the Bored No More, come watch our content. That's kind of our idea. Okay. So the Bored No More concept, currently is just basically it's like MTV or Much Music for the Canadians out there. Much Music was way better than MTV, not because I'm Canadian, but it really was. It had more quality, it had more substance. It was an institution for music for a while. It was great. And basically it's like a place you tune in, and we just invite a bunch of different podcasters. Like we're going to throw you an invite real soon, and then what we do is we just pool everyone together. They tune in, and each podcaster has about a 45-minute to a half-hour segment. I introduced the show, then I introduce the guest comes on, we talk for a quick second, then I walk away, and then the guest does their show for half an hour to 45 minutes. Then I come back in the end, we finish up with a conversation, and then on to the next guest, and I introduce the next guest, and we kind of set it up like that. So we've had everyone from Orthodox Family Life, we had Orthodox Review, we had Mr. Westford, we had Buck Johnson Counterflow, Forgive me if I forgot. There's just so many that we've done. So that was the concept of the network show. But really, what we're trying to build here is more than just that. And I call it the digital sanctuary and the analog sanctuary. To answer your question, I'll just focus on the digital sanctuary. What I mean by that is we know that, there's issues online with censorship and, building proper community, healthy community. So we're trying to solve that issue by kind of like grouping all of these podcasters together, content creators in general, which will also include what we're calling it like a record label, but it's a content creator label. Where we're currently building a site, the borednomore.net site. Manny, my business partner, and a few others have grouped together to kind of build this platform, which will replace Patreon, will replace YouTube, Twitter, all of that stuff in one space, including stores, merch stores for all our content, our brothers and sisters in the network.
Wow.
And we'll be setting it up for each one of these content creators. And we always make it clear we do not own ownership, we don't own masters, we don't own copyrights. That's always to the artist. So the artist was never be enslaved. I have a background in working in the music industry, so I know how all that goes. I worked for Sony BMG for a bunch of years. So we're not trying to replicate that. We're just trying to build a home for all of our content creators, so someone can flip on our site or our app and they can use it as Spotify, they could use it as YouTube, they can use it as whatever.
Okay.
And then we're incorporating a form of cryptocurrency to it, so that all of the transactions are completely transparent. So let's say you're on our platform, which I hope you will be, and you're like wondering, I wonder if Mano's taking money from me. You won't have to worry. You'll just go there and you'll kind of see it all together. So in there we'll have music. We have like a long roster of musicians. So to talk specifically about the music, if you've heard of Justin Marler, I'm just kidding, I know you've had him on your show. So Justin Marler has been sending me some unreleased music. So we're going to be releasing some Justin Marler. We're going to be listing some Father Turbo.
Okay, you got my attention there.
I thought I would. So we have Father Turbo. He's got like 3 or 4 albums he's unreleased. So he's confirmed that that's okay. So Father Turbo, Justin Marler. Let's see, posts feed him, who's in the chats, our buddy Cyprian, not Cyprian over the Royal Path. We have Gene Reeves. We have some of my content. Oh my God, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. There's just so many names on our Manny. Am I forgetting anybody? If he's listening, anyways, so there's a whole bunch of artists. We're going to be like releasing a compilation soon, because we just released a zine. And we're going to be making a physical copy of the zine. And we kind of wanted to go out for those punk rockers out there that know what Gilman Street was like. Gilman Street was where Green Day and Rancid and Operation Ivy and all those bands came out of. They had like a record label and a zine all connected to this location where people go to watch shows. So we're building that in Texas, like the physical version of it, connected hopefully. I won't do it unless it's connected with the church, and we would like to have we're working through that. That's a bigger.
Wow, this is
So
ambitious project.
It is. I'm rather stupid like that, and but
that's like more than I thought it was going to be. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's a quite a big project, and we are working at this really hard. We have Father's Blessing. We have all of the names I've mentioned. Buck Johnson. All of these guys. Everyone's blessed us with this. They see what we're trying to do. They see other things we don't see. So we're kind of all coming together in this project that we're going to try to build. And we will build in Texas one way or another. That's 100%. We were there a couple months ago. We took a look at the place. It's actually in the works. Most of it. So it's not just talk. I have a meeting with an amazing priest who's representing the bishop in the South. So that's actually getting close. So if this goes through, we will have a spot for all of our musician friends to come down, people to have like a retreat for the weekend, visit with monks, visit with priests. If you're familiar with the Protestant little rock concert thing called Cornerstone, we'll have an Orthodox version of it. It's kind of like Lollapalooza for Prots. It was. We'll have that happening on our premise, and all our artists, podcasters will be able to come and broadcast live from our studios, record together, commune together, pray together. I know it sounds cheesy to non-Orthodox people, but I think we're pretty hardcore in what we believe, and we're rough, rugged, and raw. And I want to see that on a level that is it's crazy. So just picture coming down for a conference to see Father Peter Hears, Jonathan Peugeot, Father John Whiteford, so on and so forth, Buck Johnson, all these people having like, a conference. Then, we eat together, we hang out together, and then we kind of check out a show where Justin Marler's playing. You come down, you do your thing. We all kind of, group together, that kind of thing. That's our big, crazy vision. It is, I would say, about halfway there.
Really?
There. Yeah. The digital part's pretty much about 60 to 7%.
Oh, so you guys some like web developers and stuff? Like,
we are blessed, brother. I can't tell you how blessed we are. Yes, we have some really talented people helping us out. Manny's amazing, my business partner at putting that online stuff together. But we also have some like heavy hitters. Dave Sims, who has a lot of background in he's in Texas. He has a lot of background in software development and building all this stuff. Cyprian from the Royal Path, we're talking to him about figuring out the crypto end of things. This is like a real deal. Like we're not messing around here. So
wow.
we're about 60 to 70% there. We should be launching our store really soon, and we'll be able to cookie cutter other content creators in there like yourself and anybody else. We're getting pretty close in terms of the location in Texas. Once we get the okay from the church, I'm going heavy and hard on getting the cash put together. We don't even need all that much really to piece this all together. And I will be seeing you in Texas, my dear brother.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I was born in Texas, so I'm a Texan.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't been there since I was 6 months old though, but I need to go back. I just had a friend move down there to Father Moses McPherson's parish. And,
yeah.
So wow. That's it. So I just found out that's news to me, a lot of that. I kind of paid attention to what you were saying on one of your live streams, and you're talking about this, but I didn't know that there was that much to it.
Oh yeah, it's big.
And I commented on one of your videos that I had a similar idea. Like, sometimes you just want to be able to like go to YouTube and there will be a live chat and a live streamer, just to have that there'll be a community there that you can plug into, Yeah. And I had the idea like, man, we should like organize and have it so there's like a TV station where there's always somebody on, and you just schedule it out ahead of time. I mean, we're almost there to the point where we can do it because there's so many channels now. There's so many shows.
Yeah, for sure.
But so I was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. But it sounds like you're actually the one that's actually doing it.
We're actually doing it. We're actually putting together. We're gonna come. I don't know. We're going back to Canada for a bit in January. When I get December, and then coming back in January. When we get back, honestly, it's like full steam ahead. We're gonna have it to the point where, especially off our site, where it'll be like YouTube as well, where like it'll be exactly what you just said. We'll have reruns of your show and everybody else's show. We'll have like a schedule for like everybody jumping in there. Hopefully we get it to the level where we have like I'm talking about everybody that is in our online community, like from Jay Dyer to DPH to Buck Johnson. He's already in, a bunch of heavy hitters. Plus also a bunch of new upcomers, and we want to start developing artists. So I want to have like two sort of avenues, for like the developing artists like we used to at the record label, and then artists that are already have a fan base, right? So they're like, for example, Christina from Orthodox Family Life, she reached out to me early on in the game. I checked out her stuff, and she had a very small audience. And right away, I'm like, talent. That's right there. That's talent. Let's develop this. Let's get going with this, right? So supporting her, walking through some of that. Also, a lot of people are running out of ideas for content, right? And when we end up falling under and also like the way the audience kind of behaves in certain ways, it kind of like incentivizes maybe not the best kind of content. Let me just put it that way. So we're trying to like develop shows.
Yeah.
We don't want to just put out stuff. We want to work with artists that want some new ideas, because we have a lot of ideas. Like, for example, Buck Johnson, I'm like, you should have a news show. So we had him on a couple weeks ago, and it was the very first time he ever did it by himself. And we had, I can't remember what we called it. It was like the news with Mr. Johnson, a counter flow of ideas, propaganda, righteous propaganda. He added that one in there, which was great. So, he came on. So, we just see like with you, I already have a couple of ideas. I'm like, oh, let me just see if he's interested in doing this. So we want to help develop ideas, develop content creators, and put them in front of an audience where they could do exactly what you just said. You're bored, man, bored no more, man. Get on there, just watch some really good content. You know what I'm saying? And go through everyone's sort of stuff. So, I mean, we have the technologies before us. It's in front of us. The time is now. We have a lot of great content creators out there. I think the message that a lot of us are putting out there needs to get in front of a bigger audience. And we also need to cultivate a community that's healthy, that's well placed. You know what I mean?
And it needs to be drama free.
Amen. Yes, sir. That's a huge aspect of what we're doing.
It's a
drama free.
It's a temptation on the internet. It's kind of like inherent to the internet, I think.
It is.
I mean, partly because that's people. Okay, we're all guilty. If there's a little drama, the algorithm feeds it to you, but the algorithm feeds you drama because that's what you're going to stop and read.
Yes, sir.
Algorithm is a reflection of human nature. It's not the algorithm pushing it into your feed. It's the algorithm recognizing that's what you're going to watch.
Yes, sir.
And that's how it works. But I think there's something about like live streaming that, the drama just like kind of comes along with it sometimes, and it kind of chews people up, and they get tired of it and they move on. Like there have been Orthodox YouTubers prior to me coming around, and they're not here anymore because they just didn't want to deal with that kind of stuff anymore, So
very true.
So how are you going to manage that aspect?
For one thing, the only thing we're gonna curate is the people we choose to work with. Okay. So it's something that we just watch people's content. We try to figure out what is their intention, right? Like this isn't. I use the analogy of Orthodoxy to me is not a band shirt. It's not a shirt that I wear to represent a band that I'm into. This is something bigger for me. I don't want to capitalize on it. I'm not looking to do that. In fact, there's been times where I've thought to myself, maybe I should stop doing this. You know what I'm saying? And I really seriously thought about that a couple of weeks ago. Then I started to receive messages from people saying that they were about to abandon their journey into Orthodoxy because of a lot of the drama you're referring to, and they were kind of sick of it. And they didn't because of like a couple of channels. They mentioned ours, they mentioned the Royal Path, and that we gave them some sort of hope. So that kind of kept me going. To answer your question, how do we avoid it? Well, I avoid it with we'll try to do our best to. I'm sure it'll creep in somehow, but just by like choosing who we bring on board, right? We'll do our due diligence. I've made the mistake of having someone on where maybe we didn't align. I didn't do my due diligence to research what they were really into. You know what I'm saying? And that happens. And I learned my lesson. That's not going to happen again. So to answer your question, what is the person's intention? What is their motivation? Why do they want to put out this content? And what kind of content do they put out? After that point, bring them on board. Okay.
Sounds good. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit before we went live. I was saying for the audience, I was saying to Mano that we YouTubers, what was I saying again?
Depends on where you're going with it. I'm not sure because you said a few things. Like our responsibility.
Right. People are paying attention. Like I said before, the dark, there's a theater full of people that's dark and you don't know who's there. And, I get I'm always surprised because I get, people like old ladies from church come up to me and say, I love your show, or I watch this show, or they're reacting. And then, or some elderly gentlemen might reach out to me, privately. So it's, I assume when I'm making content, my target audience are inquirers, people who are just finding out about Orthodoxy. And I'm not a priest or spiritual father, so I can't really guide people. But I mean, when people come to church for the first time and I'm there, I'm a regular at church, they see me, they feel like they know me, and the priest can't field everybody's question, right?
Right.
So people, they see me, that they're there, someone that they know, so they come to me with questions that I get over and over, and I can answer basic questions, like when do you cross yourself or something like that, And so for me, being a YouTuber, my target audience being the new people, I actually am qualified to answer basic, the introductory things. I'm not gonna take you and take you under my wing, and I can't do that. I'm not like a spiritual guide. We have priests for that.
Correct.
But so that's my target audience. But I'm surprised that I'll get messages from people that they've been Orthodox their whole life and they watch my stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's incredible to me. And so people are out there, people are listening, and when I first started becoming a YouTuber, I only got 5 views, 10 views, 25 views, and it has slowly crept up. And at this point, like at the beginning, it didn't matter so much what I say, even though I was putting in a lot of effort into what I, thinking about what I would say. I would plan it out. But now I'm a little bit larger profile. I might run into some drama and people hating on me, and I could probably deal with that better.
Yeah.
That's probably
all of us.
But that's not something that I had to deal with when I was a smaller channel. I'm only now realizing people are listening, people are paying attention, people, they're hearing what you're saying. So I need to be more careful about what I say, what I do, who I bring on, who I interview, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have anything to say about that?
I could totally relate. Our numbers are small in terms of like our sub count, but the impact is pretty big. Our community is pretty loyal. So I just wanted to throw that in there because of, I guess maybe our guest, I'm not sure what it is. But to answer your question, and the reason why I brought that up is I'm now encountering a lot of what you're talking about, which I shouldn't be encountering at the sub count that I'm at. I should be encountering at a much larger.
Oh, are you finding a little bit of friction kind of?
Oh yes. The last couple of months, I dropped, other than the Neil episodes, the last 3 I dropped was a lot of love from a lot of people. That was what I did a conversation with Father John Valadez and Father Turbo at the same time. And even the title of it, I can't remember what it was called, but it was something like about posers and like, get in the pit. Like I was making punk references, get in the pit and then get into a parish. So some things came up there that, there was that episode. There was the episode I did with Cyprian from the Royal Path. Some buttons were pushed there as well. And then Jamie Hanshaw, Jay Dyer's wife. I got a lot of love from them and a lot of respect. Like a lot of people were like respecting what they were saying and all that stuff. But I started to get drawn into some of the drama, and then behind the scenes, I was having a lot of people trying to contact me and like sway me in their direction. And I had no idea there was like this entire woke, I call it the woke Orthodox crowd. And they have like, yes. Yeah. The way you reacted, that exactly what I'm talking about. So they started to like pull me into these bizarre circles, and I'm like, what is going on here? So then a couple priests reached out to me, and I was like, look, the way I look at it this way is the people I respect and love say the same thing on air as they do off air. And then the people that they don't say the same thing on air as they say off air. Those people I don't trust. Right. And most of the people in that little compartment that were trying to sway me, that try to build up drama, were those people saying one thing off air that they wouldn't say on air. And I know if I even like aired their dirty laundry, which I'm not interested in doing, because I could easily do it, a lot of people wouldn't follow these individuals. And I started to realize, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And like, why do I have to even entertain this? So the way I try to do my best to combat it is just remind myself I'm just some dude with a microphone and a camera, and that's it. Go visit a church, as you said, like we're not priests and all that. And then on top of that, I try to practice blunt and raw honesty and transparency. So I have made some mistakes, and I've been very public and apologizing for those mistakes.
Okay. And
if it's okay that I mention this, and please stop me if you're not okay with this, I really do like how you handled some of the drama that you were faced with recently, because your approach was that you were transparent, you were honest, you were raw, you even aired out your own stuff. And sure. I think that's the only way. I mean,
and for the audience, he's referencing the Brother Nathaniel
yes
stuff.
Do you mind if I just throw in one comment about that? Just because I think
Sure.
I want to say it for you, if that's okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
I totally understand the situation you found yourself in and how you got there. I've been there. Your intentions were clear, even in those early stages. I could hear it in your voice and the questions you were asking. You were being very careful. Like, in fact, you were being pulled in that direction of chaos.
Okay.
You didn't go there. That was my outside observer. And before even having heard all that, someone from a schismatic old calendar monastery in Boston had reached out to me way before, about 7-8 months ago. I think they saw some potential in what I was doing, and this individual was actually a schismatic nun, and also had claimed to have known Father Seraphim Rose, also had known Pandelemon, as well as the individual Brother Nathaniel. And this person told me some stuff, and everything you said in your last video is 100% accurate. I could tell you for sure, because this person had said the same things you were saying.
Okay. Yeah.
100%. You're
Right.
100% right. So I like the way you dealt with it, and I think you should be commended, because you admitted everything. You put it all out there and you let everyone decide, but you were clear, you were honest, and you were transparent. And I think that should be that's a huge value. So, for example, you're asking, how would I avoid drama? I'd have people like you on our network, because I know if there is a problem at any point, I know you would deal with it in the same way.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. After I made the Brother Nathaniel expose, I had multiple people contact me and say, we dealt with this individual before, and we tried to warn you. That, I mean, there's been, throughout his life, it's just been similar, like just dumpster fires, over and over. And everyone he gets involved with on a personal level. Now, when I first had him on my channel, he was making Bible with Brother videos, which are pretty tame compared to what he would make on other for videos for other for his other website, but so at that time people loved him, and he was actually he had, for a little bit of a period of time, he was kind of on the straight and narrow, doing the right thing, and then maybe he got too big, or I don't know what happened, but I think he might have just lost the way a little bit.
I think a lot of us were fooled, to be honest, during that time by him. There was more than a couple of videos I appreciated that he said, but I think this schismatic nun pointed out the same thing you pointed out about mental illness. Her description of him was like he's half fool for Christ and half mentally ill.
Okay.
That was her thing. So,
and there's also a lot of crazy people out there, and sometimes it's just crazy people find you online. I don't know. That's
true. That's true. Moldy's a good example. Just kidding. I love Moldy. That's a joke.
Is there anything in the chat that you've seen that you want to respond to? I haven't really been following it this whole time.
Me neither. I haven't seen.
The chat's been going up and up.
Let's see.
People are saying it's cold. How is so Christopher says it's so freaking cold here, and it's cold here. It was like 30 degrees this morning. How is it in Mexico?
Surprisingly, where I am now, we moved a couple months ago. We were originally in Puerto Vallarta, which was very hot, still hot. It's hot there now. But now we're in a place a couple hours away from Mexico City, and it's pretty cold here. It's pretty cold.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty cold. So it's
a couple of hours away. Have you been to the monastery in Mexico City, the Rocor Monastery?
I haven't. We're trying to get our butts to actually, part of the Texas project that I mentioned is connected to Mexico. So we're trying to figure out to make contact with a bunch of churches in Mexico City. I have a couple of leads I'm working on. So we should be going there hopefully sometime early next year. Our intention is to go back to Puerto Vallarta. The OCA has said that they wanted to build a monastery there way before we had got involved. We'd like to see if we can push that forward. Coincidentally enough, if you want to call it that, I don't know, it's pretty providential to me. There's a mission from Texas that is moving here where I am currently, coincidentally enough, to do the very thing that we want to do with Mexico and kind of help develop Orthodoxy here. I know I didn't completely answer your question, but to answer your question, we're looking to do that, but also we're looking at spreading Orthodoxy healthy here in Mexico, because Mexicans adore Orthodoxy when they come into contact with it. It fits with a lot of their views and values, and they need it. The Mexican people are fantastic and incredible. They just don't know about Orthodoxy. Sorry, I didn't answer your question, but I did.
Okay, here's a comment. So this is quite a while back. I've been reading the chat here, and I went back quite a ways, but here's a comment from Christopher Shame, and he says, yeah, I have so many reservations about my music and the church and where it may fit. So this could be a conversation we could have here about secular music versus, what is this play? Some people, I mean, I think I talked about this with one of my guests, or who it was. What was I forget it. I'm sorry, I'm skipping his name, but like the conclusion I had with what was it? You just recently interviewed him. It's just
Neil
in Austin, or
musician from Austin.
Yeah.
Buck Johnson? No, he's not in Austin though. Oh, Gene Reeves.
Anyhow,
okay.
Talk about this. Talk about, like, is there a place? Because there is. Here's another comment. Orthodox Boomer Grandma says sobriety and ascetic life may not mesh with music that has heavy beats. So worldly music kind of, or secular music, there can be a temptation there. It can be maybe passionate, kind of lend to the passions, but I think personally, like, if you're coming out of the world, you've been surrounded by this music your whole life, you've listened to it, like, maybe ultimately, if you want to become holy, yes, you're only listening to church, chant, and but when you're coming out of the world, I think there's a place, I mean, who doesn't listen to music once in a while? It's like a good thing to do if you're living in the world. Maybe if you're a monk, it's appropriate not to listen to secular music. But what is your view on that? I
have some struggles with this, generally speaking, but I agree with you. Let's be honest. There's some artists I play, I don't exactly agree with their message or even their politics. Now, there's some others that I love that I don't agree with their message and politics, and I draw a line. Like, I won't play Bruce Springsteen anymore. I might have played one song recently. I have issues with Bruce, but I used to be a huge fan of Bruce. In terms of, like, the question you're specifically talking about, well, first of all, a lot of roots of music that we like, popular music, derive from church, not from Orthodoxy, but of course, gospel music and this and that. There's a lot of artists that make a lot of bad life decisions, but it doesn't mean that God won't work through them. You know what I'm saying? Like, there could be even really negative artists who will write that song. God finds his way somehow through all that mess, and it might change them. It might change you. Kat Von D is an example. She's now, playing with the idea of becoming Orthodox. Now, how she got introduced to it, I don't know specifics, but she's making a lot of references to Death to the World, to Justin Marlar. That's one of my best examples. I don't know I would have been so quick to come back to the faith if it hadn't been for the Counterflow podcast, Justin Marlar, Death to the World. These are all connected to music, right? And then having Father Turbo be on Counterflow, another shout out to Buck Johnson, and then them talking about the Cro-Mags, a most certainly not Orthodox band, and most certainly not, it's one of the most hardcore bands you can get into. Having them say that on a podcast, I'm like, that's a priest, and they're talking about Orthodoxy, and that was an entry point for me. So to answer your question, I understand the concern, unless you're going to be like, a devout monk. I agree with you. Maybe, there's a use for the tool. You know what I'm saying? There's a use for the tool. Just like what we're doing here with this podcast. This is all negative technology, depending on how we use it. You could use a gun to feed your family, or you could use a gun to rob a store. It depends on what you do with it. Right. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. And lyrics and music have an interesting way of when they're played together properly, you could hear a song, it gets stuck in your head, and you start singing the lyrics, and it might even be about a subject you never even considered, and it could be a positive subject that changes your view on life. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I
Music.
think it's important.
I think music can be used for good. And I mean, who doesn't love like religious themed folk music?
Right.
That's the
Exactly.
best, that's like the best music. Like early Bob Marley kind of stuff was like,
Yes.
and it's like almost gospel music,
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I don't know. I love that kind of stuff. So music that's inspired by God,
Yes. That's even better. And I like the Bob Marley example because I'm a massive reggae junkie. And that's one thing I always loved about reggae is they weren't afraid to talk about God. Like,
yeah, he's got scripture all through his,
absolutely.
all through his lyrics.
Absolutely. And most Rasta reggae, early like 70s in particular, it's completely covered in it. Yes, they're not Orthodox, and yes, they're Rastafarians, they're technically paganish,
Sure.
and all that stuff. But even Bob, good, I'm happy you brought that up. Even Mr. Marley, even Robert Nestor Marley found his way to Christ, right? He found his way to Christ. And a year before he died, being a Rasta, he converted to Ethiopian Orthodox. He wasn't he wasn't totally our way, like he's still Oriental,
sure.
but he was much closer. He accepted Christ in his life. That's a big deal. They actually put out hits on him. The Rastas put out hits on him, because he had converted. You know what I'm saying? So how did he get there? He got there because he kept his mind and his heart with God. And if your intent and your interest is to find truth, you will come to the point where you end up here. You will come here. You will end up here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think music will get you there.
I mean, in my personal journey, when I was a youth, I was listening to, I listened to this disgusting rap music, but like some of these artists would talk about God sometimes, and even just inside these disgusting rap music albums, there's an artist talking about God, and that was influential in my journey to finding and believing in God.
100%.
So it can be even some of that disgusting stuff can be redeemed. So.
You know what? Whatever they want to say about Tupac, or whether it's the psyop of Tupac, or whatever you want to call, whatever you want to say about him, or some even I've been hearing that he's overrated, whatever. But he would always have this bizarre way of turning it back to God.
Yeah.
You don't always notice, and you go back, and he would say stuff like, "Only God can judge me," and then all of that stuff, and it's like, even this man who's playing this role, because let's be honest, he's still, at the end of the day, he is still looking for God. Because if you're a musician and you don't believe that there's God, then you're not really making music. You're just imitating music. Because there's that moment where you're like, who wrote this? I have no idea I wrote this, but I didn't write this. We've all experienced that moment. And if you're not questioning that, something wrong with you, man. Do you know what I'm saying? Something wrong with you.
Yeah, some of Tupac's songs were basically prayers to God. He had a big influence on me. He was probably my biggest influence from a musical standpoint.
Definitely, he was great. I was a big Tupac fan. Opposed to saying DMX as well. Yeah, I only realized that after he had passed away.
Oh yeah, he would always like break up his concerts with these prayers, you know.
Yeah. He was interesting cat.
When I was there in the darkness, you know, you were the light came to me, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. That's totally true. I overlooked DMX until much later. Actually, I just looked at him as like a crappier version of Tupac. Originally, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't have that opinion necessarily right now. I have a little bit more appreciation for him.
Yeah. So I mean, us Americans and Canadians who are coming out of the secular culture, and we're just so damaged. I mean, with what we've seen in our lives, a little bit of secular music, especially if it's God themed, is not gonna hurt us, you know. Like maybe it's okay for maybe we can raise some children who are unspotted from the world, and for them it won't be appropriate to, you know, for them they'd rather go to a monastery and, you know, sing the music themselves and have it transform them from the inside out. But I think it's okay to listen to some secular music here and there. I think
Actually,
it's a good thing.
Can I comment on that? Because something I totally forgot about that's relevant to what we're saying here. My background's Greek. Obviously, there's a type of Greek music called rebetika. It's like a Greek blues.
Yeah, I saw that. I just looked it up the other day because I was reading your website.
Oh, cool! Thanks, man.
I listened to it and I was like,
it.
man, this is awesome. I want some more recommendations.
Well, I'll probably be doing an episode on it in the next little while.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, actually, that fits perfect. You didn't. It actually was great. I can build off that. And the reason why I bring up rebetika is because the root of how the music is laid out is the Byzantine church scale. So even the way that they sing, but their content, a lot of them is like very much like the blues. It is about getting drunk. It is about your wife leaving you. It is about, being in this dark place. Okay. But they always make a reference or some sort of like call to God to help them in this disaster of a moment. And the scaling of it, that Byzantine, like that scale is a root of that style of music. I carried that music with me throughout my whole life. So it forced me, not forced me, but it reminded me always of the church Byzantine scale. And even when I was the furthest away from the church, I always had reverence and love for that scale. That scale is one of the reasons I'm back, is because of that scale. And there's something powerful about it that's undescribable. And that was connected to a Greek secular music that even the lyrical content was about smoking hash, losing your wife, getting drunk in the bar, playing dice and gambling and all that stuff. So just wanted to throw that in there.
And that's like that's what they talk about in rap music. It's like, I guess it's not specific to Black culture either. It must be.
That's right.
Must be universal.
It is. When you're down and out, it's easy place to go is those vices.
Yeah. So what else what else was there? Here I have a note. I think you talked about creation of culture a little bit. Was there, is there anything more on that topic that we could say?
Yeah, I would say that we constantly act as victims to what's happening to us. Very common. It's a very common thing to do. It's a very easy trap to fall into. And whether it's like, predictive programming, or they're doing this, or programming, that's what they call TV. And, we fall into these little traps. But I think overly indulging ourselves with that thought is the trap, because you're never going to do anything with it. And if we have an opportunity here with what's happening now to build our own cultures, to create our own societies. And I don't mean that by like running away from the current one. I don't mean that at all. I'm just saying running parallel to the secular world, we can create our own culture. And I think that that's something that we're overlooking, and we're overlooking the tools that they use against us, and how we can use it for us. So we can put power back into it. So we're not just sitting here as like these like victims, where we're being victimized. We can choose to make good content. We can choose to have this kind of conversation. We could choose to make great music. Like that is a choice, and we can use their tool against them.
Absolutely. I think that's great. That's a good, I could say two things about that. One is that, we have like conspiracies is like our worldview is like the conspiracy worldview anymore now, like, because they've been just like, we understand what's going on and what's been happening and how they're trying to control the population. But the other thing I wanted, let's see, hopefully I don't forget what I wanted. Culture creation. Like, I remember this is, do you know who Ken Kesey was?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is someone who, like, people talk about, and when they're talking about, history and drugs use and conspiracies, this guy gets overlooked, I think.
Yep. I'm doing something on this. Go ahead.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was thinking about doing a podcast on him. It doesn't really exactly fit with my, doesn't necessarily fit with like the themes of my channel, but Ken Kesey was actually an influence on me when I was like in college. Like, so I went to college at the U of O, and when I was a freshman there, he was still a professor.
Right.
And that was like right before he died. And he was, he had a big influence on the culture in Eugene. And for people who don't know, Ken Kesey was like on the West Coast. He was like the guy who started the whole the whole hippie acid, movement. He was the one who was doing the
merry pranksters with the acid test.
The acid test. So like so he was down in like Berkeley in the 1960s taking working with like the US government. Like he would go into the clinic and they would give him acid, and he wrote like the book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
That's right.
Like under the influence of acid. He would go work at the state hospital in the day in Oregon, and then he'd go home, take acid, and write that book.
Mm-hmm.
And that became a movie, and everybody's heard of that. So people kind of know who Ken Kesey is. Oh, someone in the chat met Ken Kesey.
Denise. Yeah. We've talked about him on the show.
Have you?
Sure. Oh yeah. Ken Kesey. Yeah. Oh yeah. He was
important. Like I was reading his books when I was in college, and people around me had known people who knew him and stuff. And like in that book, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test,
mm-hmm.
he said that their goal was to go into the soul of America and just change the DNA and just tweak it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
And like when they were doing that cross-country trip, that was like when they did they were on acid and they accidentally made the first tie-dye. Yes. That was him, and like so and he was the one, like when they were doing the electric Kool-Aid acid tests, like that was where Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead started. That was their first performances at the acid tests. Mm-hmm. So he was the leader. Everybody recognized him as like he was like a spiritual guru,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like my goal now, I want to reach back into the soul of America and turn it back or further, maybe further. I don't know. Yep. But we need to go in, and Orthodoxy is starting to affect the culture. We really are. Like people are finding out about it, and I can't. And the way I see these huge, like very like well-known, famous people converting to Orthodoxy, it just makes me, I can't see that without thinking that the end of the world is coming, because the gospel must be preached to the whole world, right? Mm-hmm. Before, and then the end comes.
Mm-hmm.
And with all these big popular people with the internet, it's like, the guy, names are always skipping me.
It happens to me a lot.
Carlson, Tucker Carlson,
I have him right here. I was going to mention him because you mentioned
the Christianities movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign of the end of the world is coming, honestly, that like people are finding out about it, and we can participate in that, like by creating culture, like you're saying.
Well, it's great that you brought up Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters, because that is one of the guys that's referenced very highly in that book, The Changing Image of Man, which is exactly what you're talking about there. So Ken Kesey's Merry Pranksters whole thing and his connection to the CIA and all of that stuff, and the beatniks. Everyone kind of thinks the beatniks were like good guys. No, they weren't. They were horrible. They were the beginning first attempt at making the counterculture happen. And even Timothy Leary is very clear on saying that the CIA helped spread introduce LSD to the whole thing. All that culture creation stuff is imperative and very important to know. What's Molly's saying? At least you know how to read. So it's not just me he slams. He slams you too.
You got to keep us humble. Moldy. The YouTuber has to stay humble, because
absolutely Moldy's great for that. But Ken Kesey, I actually have this one. I'm going to wait for Jay Dyer because I want to surprise him with this one clip where it's clear that he did know about Orthodoxy and clearly inverted it.
Ken Kesey did?
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna wait for that day. I haven't reached out to Jay just yet. I was waiting, but I might now, because this is like the third time this has come up. But bringing up Ken Kesey is crucial and very important, and I think that is exactly what we're trying to do with re-engineering their social engineering, is take all those things that they've used against us and flip it on them. And to get it into, and I think you're right with the spread of Orthodoxy currently, and how many people are like even hearing about it and knowing it's not just some weird, like, oh, what is that? Some sort of weird religion, Judaism or something like that. I'm like, no. I think it's important that it's getting out there, and I think that it's permeating the culture in the reverse of the acid test.
Okay, so let's start winding down.
Sure.
Why don't you tell us, like, what you want people to know about you, like where to find you, websites, YouTube, all that, and anything else you want to say that you haven't had a chance to say.
Sure. I just want to thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed a lot of your content, and I think it's great that you're building, and I think it's great that people like you exist out there. I could see that your intent and your motivation for what you're doing is in the right place. So I wanted to start off with that. I know I didn't answer your question, but I think it's important to acknowledge those individuals out there that are doing their best to kind of do what they're doing. So, we'll continue this conversation, and we'll bring you on board. And I think we're on the same page. We have a lot of the same goals, and with what we're doing and how we want to go about doing that. In terms of what I want to say, nothing other than like if you guys want to ever tune in to SOS Radio on Sunday nights, that'd be great. We do SOS Radio. We do.
At what time?
Normally we do it at 7 Central Standard Time.
Okay.
7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have a lot of stuff coming up. So if you want to stay, up to date, follow us on Instagram, The Study of Stuff, Twitter. I think I'm going to start trying to use that a bit more. I don't even remember my handle on there. Patreon, we're on there. And our website that we're working through, it's up though, is borednomore.net. We have a bunch of Telegram and Discord groups as well that is connected to the network, and their intention isn't to just talk about our stuff. It's where places like for you, for example, you can promote your stuff. So we started one on Facebook not too long ago. Facebook's a weird place for me. I don't like being there too much, but we have Telegram and Discord. So if you want to keep up to date, I'll send you an invitation as well. We encourage all podcasters, content creators to be in there and promote their work as well as our, like all of us together.
Okay, good. Yeah. Like with this channel, I go through phases of being more enthusiastic and less enthusiastic, and making more content and less. And sometimes you have to take a break and stuff. And like lately I've been distracted trading meme coins and stuff and cryptocurrency. So that's been taking a lot of my attention up lately, because it's now's the time for that. So, but I'm actually looking forward to the bear market, I can spend more time creating content. So
doing a lot of that too.
Do you do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, Manny handles most of it. I deal with the geopolitical understanding of the environment and how that Manny does the day-to-day trading stuff.
Does he?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we have a couple of we're all going to be incorporating all of this and everything we're building moving forward. And we're looking heavily into I don't want to call it Cyprian's thing, but he uses it a lot. Cyprian from the Royal Path, XEC eCash. So we're looking at using that to onboard people, because of it's a great way of using the Bitcoin network in the proper way. It's kind of like what Bitcoin Cash was intended to be, but never was, isn't, I guess you would say.
You mean what Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin, was meant to be?
Right. But Bitcoin splintered off, and it had a couple of offshoots, and Bitcoin Cash was one of the ones where they were trying to bring it back to the original thing. As
a payment, peer-to-peer.
Correct. Because our take on what's going on with the financial thing is a little bit different than most people. I think you should take advantage of it as much as you can to the average listener, but don't get fooled here either. And I'll let Cyprian kind of talk about it. I'm going to have him on soon. I hope we could break it down. But the original line from the white paper of the original Bitcoin white paper, I think it's something that's very important to focus on. It refers to it as a network and a system. It's not something you hold. It's something that you use. And if you really want to use it for what it was intended for originally, you don't want Bitcoin at 100,000. I'm not saying let's not take advantage of that. I'm not saying that, but you want it to be a system and a network. The way it's currently being used is not a system, and it's not a network. So we're moving in that direction, and XCC and eCash seems to be a really good way to start. Manny Vanamides, he's in the chat as Vanamides. That's my business partner there. He's got a better hold and understanding of it, and Cyprian definitely does. And I learned a lot from Cyprian.
Yeah, I know he has like some sort of newsletter or something, right?
Yeah, and then he also had the Bitcoin Mystery School, which we were in the last class of, and his breakdown is like, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy.
it?
Yeah, oh yeah, it was great.
Well, I just use it as a way to make money, honestly, because I don't
As you
have a
should.
lot of other ways to make money. I
Same with
mean,
us. Same with us.
or is that true?
Yeah. I don't mean to. We're using it currently in that way as well because we don't have a choice for the same things you're saying. So my goal was always, rob from the rich and feed your family. That's kind of how I looked at it originally.
Well, that's almost what it is. I mean, there's a lot of money floating around out there, and like they're sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, and it's just getting stolen and laundered and whatnot. So people are stealing money. That's how there's this much. Anyhow, that's like a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast.
True. True. It's your fault. You brought up crypto.
That's okay. I mean, I just wanted to tell people that's why I'm not streaming as often as I have been. I've been trading meme coins and cryptos and stuff lately. And this is my, I actually put a warning out to people on X because this is my second cycle and we're getting close to the mania phase, and people are who've never bought crypto before, they're gonna buy crypto for the first time and they're gonna lose their money and probably sell it in the bear market at the lows. Yep. I just talked to my brother. He bought Bitcoin at like, I don't know, was it $600 or something when he first bought it? And he said he sold it at 20,000 at the lows of the bear market because he was he was depressed and demoralized that it was so low, and that's like a lesson because you get it. That's how people profit from you. You get excited and greedy at the top, and then anyhow, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show. But that's why that's part of the, I'm confessing to my viewers. That's part of the reason why I haven't been streaming as often and making shorts, every day or whatever.
So good reason, man. Bank now and get out.
Get out. So I'm looking to sell. I'm not looking to buy really at this moment in time. I mean, there will be some trades, but I'm looking to cash out. So you have a boredom. Did I link that in the description? Can't remember. I got to look up this borednomore.net. You said?
Yeah, it's borednomore.net, right, Manny? Right, Manny? Borednomore.net, right? Yeah, because it's a newer site, and I've only been on it a couple times. Yeah, borednomore.net.
Okay, I'm gonna go check that one out.
It's in its infancy right now. Currently, we're just working on it, but go check it out.
Awesome. So, and you're gonna have your own. What are you gonna call the crypto that is associated with it?
We don't have a name yet. I haven't even named the project yet. I'm waiting to speak to a priest to have some ideas. So it'll probably somehow be connected, but not. You know what I mean? Like obviously, we're not going to give it some sort of Orthodox name, but I do want it to have some sort of connection to the community. So we don't have a name just yet.
It's kind of like what they do on Rockfin. Don't they use like, what do they use? They have a crypto that you earn.
Rock or whatever it's called. Yeah.
They do. Is that what it's called? Rock?
Something like that. I can't remember what it's REC or something like that. I can't remember what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like library, Odyssey had the library token and
did they?
Yeah, and then there was like this crypto Spotify thing that was trying to make it move. It was called Audius, and then their token's called Audio.
I held that for a little short period of time.
I still have some like an idiot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I lost money on that one.
Oh, for sure. Me too. For sure. Because it spiked right after it was released, and then it never went back up again. It just died. It was kind of a meme coin, really.
Vanny Meaty says someone has to lose in order to make a profitable trade. So, what I was saying was, your first cycle, everybody loses money in crypto, and then you learn your lesson, and then hopefully, when you come back and you stick to it and you don't give up, second cycle, hopefully, it'll be the one that you actually start making some money.
That's true. We're in our almost third, let's say. So we've learned some lessons.
Are you third?
Yeah. Well, because I got into it 2019. I was looking. I was one of the early people that knew about Bitcoin, but never did anything about it. So of course I'm kicking myself. You know what I mean, and all that stuff, of course. But 2019, is when I started really dipping. So yeah, we made some mistakes along the way. We should have sold stuff when it was really
Right.
high.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, but
So,
live and learn, brother.
maybe we should have some conversations about this exchange notes off camera.
Absolutely. Sure.
Denise says, maybe I missed the gate with Bitcoin. I don't know.
Yeah. That's always a hard one, is giving people advice on crypto, especially now, because
Right.
now is not a good time.
Right. That's what I was saying
buy.
in my tweet yesterday was,
Yeah.
it's high, it's going to go up and it's going to crash and you're going to lose money probably. So, I mean, Bitcoin's not a good time to buy. Wait a year or two till it's the bear market.
Yeah.
Then you buy it.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it's going to go down lower than what it is now, most likely.
There'll be a pullback. There'll be a pullback.
Yeah.
For sure. And then you buy on the pullback if you're trying to jump in there, or find tokens that have a good backings that follow the trend lines that are much lower. Would probably, but I don't want to give too much advice, because I've said this in 2020. When we started investing, 3 or 4 of us started investing together. I was like, by 2025, get out. I kept hammering that, because it's clear in their works. It's clear in their agendas that if you're in like, my take on some of this crypto stuff is less, it's not black pilled, but it's not as optimistic as the average crypto bro.
Right. I mean, it's mostly a scam. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm looking to sell everything, and I'm not trying to start to buy and hodl at this point.
We have a lot in common. We agree on a lot of things, dude. That's not a common thing to agree on, especially right now. Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone's like, buy.
Well, that's what I was like, maybe 4 years ago, my first cycle, I was like, oh, this is the future. And I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, they're going to tokenize, real world assets and everything. It's all going to be on the blockchain, but
what I'm annoyed by is everyone doesn't realize that they just rebranded the whole greater reset idea, and they rebranded the CBDCs because they're like, well, we're not going to do. You don't need CBDCs, bud. Like, you don't need it that way, the way it's described to you. There's other ways of pulling you into the thing, and you're falling for it, man. And I like when they keep saying this to me, I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I stopped having that conversation. That's one of the conversations that's happening behind the scenes. We were talking about some of the drama, and people want to bring me into it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm staying out of this. I'm just going to stay out of this. Like, my take on it is very similar to yours. Very
also
similar.
It has to do with crypto.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like,
interesting.
All of this stuff is very interconnected. It's the goal. I'm not saying Bitcoin is an elite situation the way, like, someone thinks I'm saying it, like, if they want to say that, but, it was co-opted. Anyways, I don't want to get into it, because some people get, especially now, it's become a religion. And if you say certain things against anything tokenized, oh man, they come for you, dude. Like, and I'm just like, you know what? Just believe what you want. I'm going to back away from here. Okay. I'll take what I know, and I'll take my chances with that. I just want out. I want to capitalize on it. And then help my community.
I think, if you're this, I'm kind of wondering if, capitalize on it, like you said, and then maybe buy some physical gold and silver. That's what I'm thinking with, because if we're going to have a World War III, that's what, and everything crashes or something, that's what you would want to have. I don't know.
I'm not sure about the gold and silver anymore, but I used to be on that board, but I don't necessarily disagree. But buy something tangible. Do something with it. Like, generators, buy a place to live, like, get some stuff around you, build your community. Okay, here's how I look at it, and I'll just leave this at this. I think whoever got elected recently or whatever happened, the good part is it bought us time. That's something that everybody can agree on, okay? And I'm happy that individual did win, because it buys us time. We have a bit more time to build something, and nobody can disagree with that, whether you love him or hate him, whatever. It bought us some time. And if we don't do something with the time that we're just given, then so to get back to the point is, I want to take my earnings, whatever we do with it, and whatever we get out of it, and build stuff with it. That's something that I strongly agree with Cyprian from the Royal Path, for sure. Do not be a consumer. Don't be a trader. Be a producer. Take that stuff and build something, whether it's community, businesses, or this and that. So someone that may not have gotten into Bitcoin early, like a Denise, let's say, or this and that, they get covered by the community we put together, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So also taking a lot of that blockchain stuff and using it as a tool is a very good idea as well, if we can do that. you know, that kind of thing. Again, this is not to say, you know, I'm for or against it. It's just maybe some of the narrative I don't agree with. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I have a good friend who's who has experience in the Web3 and Ethereum virtual machine programming. If you needed a developer or someone who might be able to help, I could put you guys in contact. He's actually my godson.
Oh, that's amazing. That's okay. That's awesome. This is why we need to have these conversations as well, is to see how we can help each other and how we can really build something here. Because in this conversation, I can think of 4 or 5 things I want to reach out to you about to build moving forward, from art to everything else.
Really? Okay. But I like to try to keep I don't put a cap on how long my streams go, but I think an hour and a half is when people start to get tired.
Yeah.
So this has been great, and it sounds like we're going to continue to work with each other a little bit in the future. So I would like to say thank you from the Young Penitent channel to the Mano.
Thank you so much.
On. And that's the stream for today. So thank you to the chat, everyone who's watching live, and we'll catch you all next time.
Adios.